Don't need to play that again. Welcome to Horse Chats. We're so excited to saddle up and talk about all things equine with you today. I'm Brittany Sweeney. I'm the communications manager here with the Livestock Conservancy. I'm joined by Charlene Couch, our program manager, senior program manager, and Steve Edwards. Thanks for joining us today. And before we get started, quick reminder to leave us a comment if you've got a question or you want to let us know you're here. Just go ahead and put in a comment. And then after we finish chatting today, we'll get to all of your wonderful questions. A quick shout out and a thank you to the NC Horse Council and Premier One for their generous support and helping programs like Horse Chats become possible. All right, if we're ready to get started, Charlene, do you want to introduce Steve?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Steve, for being here. Today, our guest is Steve Edwards, coming to us from Smithfield, Virginia. On the side, Steve is a lawyer, but in his real life job, he runs a wonderful riding program called Mill Swamp Indian Horses. Welcome, Steve.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, because you're working a lot with colonial Spanish horses, can you just start out by telling us what is a colonial Spanish horse?
Colonial Spanish horse is a term that is used to describe the descendants in North America today of the horses that were originally brought over in the earliest Spanish colonization of the New World. So we've got a breed that breaks down into several different strains and families. And we have several of those strains at the horse lot that we breed and preserve or promote. Marsh Tackies, Choctaws, the Banker horses made up of wild horses from Kerala and Shackleford. We've got some of what was left of the Grand Canyon stock that came down from Vicky Ives in Texas. In fact, a lot of our horses that were not wild horses came up out of Texas. So we have our overall class of horse as the colonial Spanish horse, but a lot of different families that share a lot of common traits.
That's right. Yeah, all those Spanish conquistadors came in with these great smaller horses, and we forget that this is what horses were like for a lot of people in the world.
In fact, if we tell people all the time, if your family lived in the Southeast, like mine did for a long time, if they lived in the Southeast before, say, about 1700, 1710, the horses that they rode, whether they were English, whether they were French, the horses that they rode were Spanish horses whose roots came out of the Caribbean and then initially back from Spain to start with. You know, as delicate as a horse's digestive system is, bringing horses all the way from Northern Europe in slings, all the way back up the East Coast, it's a lot easier to bring your pigs and your goats along with you, but to stop in Hispaniola and pick up the horses that you're going to be using and only bringing them on the last 2-3 week stretch of the journey.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And those horses came here and they got distributed all over the country, and there are pockets here and there that have adapted really well to all the unique conditions that they found themselves in, like the marsh tacky region.
Yeah, they really have. They adapt to their particular environment where they grew, and they also are shaped by the breeding that was going on, because many of these horses would have two phases. They'd have feral strains, but there'd also be a lot of human breeding involved in them. And something that a mechanical part of it that people don't think about today, the simple reality is, if you don't have roads, if you don't have wagons, these horses were absolutely superior to anything bigger. A bigger horse is of no value compared to a smaller horse as long as we're riding on trails and we're going through the woods and we're making our own trails. It's only when we're pulling big heavy wagons and when there is really heavy plowing to be done that a larger horse has any advantage at all over the smaller horses.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, tell us a little bit about your program out there at Mill Swamp. What are you doing with those horses?
We have a program is very broad. We have not just we started off with BLM horses, and then we started with some of the wild horses from the Outer Banks of North Carolina, breeding them, training them, and then before long we were training kids how to train them. And from that grew a riding program, a natural horsemanship program that initially still creates an awful lot of confusion for people when they would pull up the lane and they want to know what kind of horses these little horses are. And you explain to them that they're wild horses and they're Mustangs. And people think about Texas and they think about the West. And so we built a picture frame around these horses to put them in their right context. We got the kind of goats you would have found here in Colonial, Virginia. We got the sheep you'd have found here in Colonial, Virginia. We got Ossabaw Island hogs of the Colonial type hog that you would have found here. We have heritage breeds of poultry that would have found. And we even built a settler's home, smokehouse, corn crib, and a little tobacco barn, all to encase that if you hadn't been here in 1635, these are the horses you would have found. These are the animals that you would have found. And that's why the name of the nonprofit that runs our program is Gwaltney Frontier Farm, because we want to hammer that down to people too, that there was a time that Tidewater, Virginia was the frontier of the British Empire. Now we think of the frontier as out west or Alaska, but at this time period, we were on the edge of wildness.
Wow. Yeah, that's a picture. I've been out to see your place, and it does really put things into context for you. That's what it was like, and it's a beautiful spot.
And we stress in our programs, we teach a lot of history. We teach the kids and adults a lot of agricultural history and soil and water conservation. We don't use any poisons. We don't use any modern fertilizers. We don't use any herbicides or pesticides. We grow a lot of worms. We grow good microbes. We distribute them in the soil. We naturally build up pastures that way. We build wildlife habitat from land that we are clearing all around it. That part of the program provides a background for a lot of the more human service-oriented things. Up until the virus hit, for 7 years, on every Friday, if a person was in the inpatient PTSD program at the Hampton VA, it was part of the treatment protocol to come out and work with our horses. Because of the virus, that's not happening right now. We also had a local substance abuse program for young people that would have monthly programming coming out. We eventually, by word of mouth and word of computer and word of blog and word of Facebook, we eventually started attracting a lot of people that had been through very significant trauma in their life. And we don't have a separate program for people who've had complicated lives, because the reality is, if you were raised on Leave It to Beaver, or if you'd have been raised on Dark Shadows, the horse is still the answer to both problems. And I use the horses for the last 21 years. I've handled sexual assault cases and molestation and child abuse cases. And a lot of times, the victims in my cases spend time with the horses, sometimes even working the horses, to build the kind of confidence that they need to be able to get on the stand and testify. And on Monday nights, for kids and adults that want to learn how to play fiddles and guitars and banjos and dulcimer and dobro and auto harp and washboard and wash tub bass, probably have harmonica, kazoo. I've gotten good on a kazoo. And the kids that have gotten good enough, part of what pays for the program is the fees that they get paid for playing music. Because we are a nonprofit. We have absolutely no paid staff. Nobody gets paid at all. So we have program fees that take care of things, grants that take care of things, contributions, donations, and very, very hard work on the part of a whole lot of kids and adults to make the program happen.
So going back to the therapeutic aspect of using horses, I've experienced it myself, but what do you think it is about a horse that makes it be real?
Here's what it is. A person, and not to use the term pejoratively, I mean it very literally, human being is a predator. We share a lot in common with other large mammal predators. Our eyes are on the front of our heads. We smell like sulfur dioxide from eating meat. We walk in straight lines when we see something we want. We have claws. We make eye contact. In short, just about everything that we do is a turnoff to large herd prey animals, cows, buffalo, deer, and horses. But when a person has been traumatized badly enough, or when a child is traumatized badly enough, without having any concept that it's happening, as a protective mechanism, they begin to respond as a prey animal. So without understanding why it bothers them so much to have someone looking them in the eye, without understanding why they can't be closed up in an elevator anymore, without understanding why it bothers them so much to have someone reaching out to shake their hands, all they know is that there's stuff they couldn't do before. So when they start to see that the horse responds the way they do, then they can start having some understanding of self. You take that understanding of self and you couple it with the trust that develops. A lot of people that come out for the programs, they don't trust people, and they shouldn't. They have lived a life that gives them absolutely no reason. They've never had anybody they could trust. I have had people close to my age tell me, this horse is the first thing I've ever trusted. And the flip side of it being, as we explain to people all the time, that horse has no reason not to kill you. He's not afraid he's going to jail. He didn't learn in Sunday school that he shouldn't do it. He's not hurting you because he trusts you and wants to be with you. And when that trust connection is made, plus the self-understanding and self-awareness that comes through understanding your own reaction from trauma, then people get in a position to grow. But the very biggest thing and the most important thing to understand, a predator's primary drive, his ultimate goal, is autonomy. A predator, whether we are talking about a 16-year-old that wants his driver's license, or we're talking about a weanling fox who wants to go out and hunt on his own, is looking for autonomy. A horse as a prey animal cares absolutely nothing about autonomy. They need security. And if a person has been traumatized badly enough, there is no way that simply increasing their autonomy is going to take care of things. First, they have to find security. If you simply say, well, look, you need a better job. You need a nicer neighborhood. Your problem is that car that keeps breaking down all the time. You need all of these things. You just driving drunk in a more expensive vehicle or thinking about suicide in a nicer apartment than you were before. If you don't find security first, the horses can teach people how to find security. That's a long answer, but that's what it all comes down to. And that's whether we're talking about someone who got terrified in Afghanistan or someone who was terrified in their uncle's home when they were 5 years old. It's the same answer.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, I know you work with little kids and you work with adults, veterans. How do people know how to find you? I mean, you're a therapeutic center.
My mama carried mail. She was a rural mail deliverer. Mama was her own privatized social services agency. From driving around, she knew everybody that needed some money for Christmas or had a doctor's bill coming up. And I really learned from Mama that one thing that poor people know is other poor people. And traumatized people who get better know a whole lot of other traumatized people who haven't gotten better yet. And that's it. That's it. And we don't advertise and we don't promote and we don't push that we are that we are a therapeutic riding place. Because if I ever find a kid that's not messed up, he can ride too. I found one that wasn't. But if Leave It to Beaver was real, he could ride too.
And that would be good for him too.
Yep.
All right. You've got a number of different strains there of the Colonial Spanish type of horses. Are you doing any breeding work?
Yeah. Last summer, we borrowed Big Muddy Miracle, beautiful Choctaw stallion with a touch of Cherokee background from Mary McConnell. We brought him down in August. We bred him we put him out with 3 straight Choctaw mares and 3 mares that were very high percentage Choctaw. We have 6 beautiful colts from that. We also have, last year we bred 1 Corolla mare to another Corolla stallion. We've got and I'm particularly excited about this pure Corolla baby that we have. His uncle, or her uncle is the only Corolla that I have seen that does the running walk. That's gaited like a Tennessee Walker. This baby is marked just like her uncle. Maybe it's going to be more than color that's going to do it. I would love to build that, enhance that characteristic in the banker horses. This afternoon, I hope I'm going to have a beautiful little red jack. Well, not little, he's a right big jack. Delivered it to the horse lot to breed to one of my Colonial Spanish mares that came up from the Sims family in Texas. In fact, I even told, they're probably watching this. Yep, I'm going to breed Janie to a donkey and she's going to have a beautiful mare. She's going to have a beautiful mule next fall. We do breeding with what's left of the Grand Canyon line. We have San Clemente Island goats, Leicester sheep, Hog Island sheep. I've mentioned the Ossabaw hogs. So we have a whole lot of raising going on.
Yeah, I hear that. And then what do you do with your foals? Do you incorporate them into the program or do they move along with new owners?
Probably now it's probably over 30 of our horses belong to riders in the program. You don't have to own a horse to be in a program, but a lot of our program participants end up acquiring one of the horses. And what I really want to see happen is to have wonderful babies born and have them go to other places that will continue breeding them. And that is the model that I had hoped for a lot, a crabgrass model. But we are becoming more of a sunflower model where we're producing a whole lot of seeds, but they're tending to stay very, very close to home. I do have a Corolla and Choctaw that is out in Colorado right now, and that's probably the furthest from home that I have any of our horses. But I'm 60 now. Shoot, if I make it another 15 years, God knows how many of these horses are going to end up somewhere else.
Good for you. That's terrific. So if somebody wants to buy a Colonial Spanish horse, would they come to you, or would you be able to direct them to someone?
What they should do is send me an email. And my email is easy to find. It is on our website. Our website's easy to find because it's millswampindianhorses.com. When you look on that webpage, somewhere on there it's going to have my website. My website's even easier. MS as a Mill Swamp, MS Indian Horses with an S at AOL.com. And yes, people should get in touch with me if they want to participate in the offsite breeding program.
All right. Tell us a little bit about what these horses can do. You mentioned that some of them are gaited horses.
What they do best is take you further in the woods than you ever thought you could ride, and that you ever thought a little horse could ride. Let me tell you about Tradewind. Tradewind's a wild Corolla. He was captured about 2008 because he was utterly crippled. He was foundered and had been foundered long enough so that he had actually had a twist in the hoof, and the hoof was horribly abscessed. It took, a year and a half of corrective trimming using Pete Ramey techniques to get that hoof turned over so it was on the ground. It was still tender. Longer than that to get it so it was not tender. He is 12 hands and 2 inches. When he was in dead top condition, he weighed 626 pounds. In 2010, I began 2010 weighing 222 pounds. I ended it weighing 218 pounds. And in 2010, I rode him so many miles trotting through the woods that he was National Pleasure Trail Horse of the Year for the Horse of America's Registry. He went from crippled to national champion. 12'2", 626 pounds. I started the year at 222. I ended it at 218. If you get your calculators out, that's much more than that 20% rule that the modern horse world harps on. People would say, well, yeah, well, maybe he's made it through this year, but what's going to happen when he gets older? Well, that was 10 years ago, and he's still cranking along quite well, and I am too.
That's great. Sounds like you're both endurance participants.
That is what they are the best at.
Yeah.
In terms of when we think of horses. But there's those horses and the Choctaws, there's something substantially different about these horses if we're talking about using horses for healing emotional pain. The Choctaws in particular, these horses that lived in herds, if you allow them to live in herds, if you allow them to live in bands, if you allow them to live as close to wild as they possibly can, if you don't put them in stables and you don't feed them sugar and you spend time with them, they don't act like horses. They act like milk goats. They have to be with people. They attach themselves to people emotionally from the beginning, from the first encounter. The kinds of things that people dream about one day having a relationship with a horse. That is such a wonderful jump start for horses that can be used to help people. And I love all kinds of horses, but a modern horse does not have those instincts that say, my survival depends on belonging. And I want to belong to something. I want to belong to somebody, and I want to be with a person. And they will be physically with people, I think, easier than most modern horses.
Wow. That speaks highly of those horses. I know Mary was using some of her Choctaws for dressage, wasn't she?
Well, I mean, the perfect dressage horse is a great athlete with an awful lot of balance, always knows where his feet are. That is these horses.
Yeah.
That is these horses. This weekend, we had some corrals out on a long straightaway in the woods. And the horses up front were cantering hard. And several of the corrals were keeping up beautifully, trotting faster than most people think of trotting today. Now, when I was a kid, a local horse show would probably have about 3 classes in it involving sulkies or buggies in one way or another. Now, nobody uses them. But for anyone that's interested in something that can really lay down a trot, that you can depend on not to lose his mind when a turkey flies up out of the woods, these horses really, really would be spectacular for pulling sulkies.
Yeah, and they've got to have jobs for them to keep on surviving. So yeah, you've presented some really strong words there, strong positive words for how these colonial Spanish horses can be used.
You know, I had the little kid was not trying to be smart aleck, and she wasn't trying to be profound. She was just answering a question. We had come in from a ride, and she was brushing her little, I believe she had a shackle for that she was brushing off. And a lady who had never seen such small horses being ridden sort of gave a rather critical tone, at least through the top part of her nose while she was talking, and said to the little girl, "What can you do with a horse like this?" And she said, "Oh, I can do 30 miles yesterday, but tomorrow I'm going to do 50. That's what you do with little horses.
Yeah, that's a lot of heart.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany, do you have some questions coming in?
Yeah, are y'all ready for some questions? We've got a lot today, which is great. Let's see. This is from Sherry. She says, we're here. Hi, everyone. Hi, Sherry. Thanks for joining us today. We're glad you're here.
Hold on for a second on that.
Sure.
Before we went on the air, I was talking about the different parts of an operation that makes it successful and things that you'd never think of in the beginning. This is what I was talking about with our Facebook page. We've got, I think, like 1,600 people in a group Facebook page. Sherry is what? It's Sherry's pictures that she takes of the horses and of the kids that make people get up on a Monday morning and turn on Facebook to see what happened at the horse lot over the weekend. She does great stuff for us.
Good work, Sherry.
Yeah, great job. Casey says, Audrey and Ella, we're here. Hi, Casey, Audrey, and Ella. Thank you for joining us today.
Very good young riders and horse trainers, and a first-rate guitar and ukulele player and a mandolin player that is coming along quite well.
That's awesome.
A fan club here. This is
right.
great.
I love it. Nell says she's watching, listening, and learning. Thanks for joining us today, Nell. We're so excited you're here.
Nell also is very helpful on a lot of stuff that goes on at the horse lot.
I love it. Everyone's tuning in. Joyce says she loves your training plan to use children.
We make the latter part of the 20th century might be one of the first times that we've had substantial numbers of horse cultures that didn't think training horses was kids' work. just about all over the world throughout history, the initial handling of horses was something the kids did. And right on up until when I was little, it was the kids went and fed the horses, and it was just about always going to be a kid that was the first one to get on the horse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today, Joyce.
Thanks, Joyce. Good to see you.
She's got one more. She loves listening to the history. So thanks for telling us all the history today. Verna says, I've heard they are connected to spirituality.
You know, I was a religion major at William and Mary, and I always have a hard time with that word because I don't know exactly what people mean when they say that. I do know that if there are things out there that you don't understand, an amazing proportion of them can be taught to you by a horse. And if that's what someone means by spirituality, then I'd have to agree.
Horses teach us a great many things. Jolene says she loves listening to your perspective. So thanks
Well,
for being
thank you.
here, sharing your perspective, Steve. Ferna also says, could you give more information on the origin of the breed?
A timeline to keep in your head is really a neat thing to have. All right, Jamestown. Now, look, I'm just here across the river from Jamestown. The English came to Jamestown in 1607. My horses, my family came here in 1635. My horses in my pasture right now, their family came here in the 1520s. They came here before the English came here. And the Spanish horses were distributed in the Southeast, not in as huge a number as they were in the Southwest, because Spanish colonization did not last as long in the Southeast as it did in the Southwest. But that's where these horses come from. Now, main theory is that there were 3 different types of horses that the Spanish brought with them, and that the different body types, I should say, and that the different strains of colonial Spanish horses we have are influenced somewhat by which of those 3 types they grow out of. The reality, of course, is they're influenced primarily by human breeding, if that was done, or the environment that they lived in.
Great. Allison says, some of the bankers are gated, so it makes sense that it could pop up in the Corralo horses. So you talked a little bit about the gait of your horses. All right, let's see.
It may even be accurate to say that if you had a camera on slow enough motion, that all of them are gated. Some to a very much less degree, but I think the footfall patterns are going to show up gated on all the banker horses.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see. VIP Ranch Equine says, is the gait the same as what some call the Indian shuffle on the old Appaloosas?
I have some of them that do what is often called an Indian shuffle. I have some that have something that the old people around here call a single foot that raises feet higher than the shuffling motion that I have. Joey, one of my favorite Choctaws, he shuffles. I mean, his feet don't come up high off the ground at all. They just sort of, it's like they're feeling around as they're going. It's wonderfully smooth. He can really cover ground with it. Then I have others that there's much more of a prance to what they're doing.
Yeah, some of the work out of the Livestock Conservancy has been to look at gait in some of the strains of colonial Spanish horses, and animals that are made to go into swamps travel differently than animals that are made to travel on sand. We'd love to take a look at what your horses are doing up there.
I would love to get a really good study done on them. It would be a great thing to compare and contrast.
All right.
Future work. see it.
Yep.
Louverture says horses are true healers. I've been training horses all my life, and I've learned more from them than anything. So
It is a remarkable thing if a person practices natural horsemanship, and if you are immersed in it. Gradually, Will James talks about, I think the book was called Lone Cowboy. And he talks about how when he was away from people for so long, just around horses, he found himself spooking when a sagebrush would go by. I consider myself to be a pleasant, easy to get along with person, but I can't stand to have anyone in my way when I'm planning to walk somewhere. I do expect herds to disperse as I stroll. I expect people to get out of my way. Now I don't actually kick and bite them if in Walmart if they don't move, but the thought enters my mind.
you just mentioned natural horsemanship. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Natural horsemanship. So often when people are debating, is it good, is it bad, they make up their own straw opponent to argue against. If a person thinks natural horsemanship means that you let a horse kick you, bite you, stomp you, and run off and do anything that it wants, and the horse gets to make all the decisions, and then you give it some treats, that's not natural horsemanship. That's unusual kind of horse abuse. That's abuse. Here's all natural horsemanship is. Instead of trying to teach horses to speak English, we teach kids to learn to use their bodies to speak horse. We only try to teach horses with concepts they understand. In my pasture, if a boss horse is bitten by a young horse who doesn't know any better, the boss horse does not run and get a whip. He doesn't turn around and yell at them. He kicks. He may only have to kick once. He may kick twice. He will probably never have to kick again. If a horse bites me, I make my hand as much like a hoof as I can, and I kick with it. And they don't bite me anymore. That's a part of natural horsemanship that a lot of people aren't comfortable with. But we respect the horses enough to allow them to be horses and to treat them like horses and to not expect them to act like people. Because they will act like people if you let them. They'll act like very bad, very spoiled, very selfish people.
All right, thank you. Let's see. Eddie says, I enjoy following the Mill Swamp Facebook page because they're doing great work with kids.
And he's also down there doing great work with the Marsh Tacky horses, and they are extraordinary horses. We have some Marsh Tackies at our place. I just rode one Sunday through some of the wettest, nastiest environment I've ridden in years for 14 miles, and it was still a very good experience. It would not have been a very good experience on a lot of other horses. These are great horses.
Thank you, Eddie. Louverture also says it's important to understand the horse, go with them as in what you allow. As he stated, to a degree, kid horses, especially babies, are just like raising kids.
Yep.
Well, I think that is all of our questions or comments that have come in for today. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about that we forgot to ask you about?
One thing that is difficult to teach, but I think is really important to learn, and I hope more horse people really put the effort into learning, and that's microbial pasture development and building really good, nutritious pastures that put groundwater in the ground, sequester carbon, and give the horse a wonderful environment of multiple species of forbs. A good horse pasture does not have all the same kind of grass in it. Cemeteries have all the same kind of grass. not horse pastures. A good horse pasture is a rough, rugged looking thing. But nothing makes a horse happier than a good pasture. And it's one of the best things that people can do for a horse is to really, really work to have good pasture and sound soil and water conservation. And that's something that we try to teach very hard.
That's great. Great advice, Steve. Thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope more folks will look you up online and follow your blog. It's fascinating work you're doing.
Well, thank you. And just we talked about our kids and how many of the kids. I see Chris had posted up here. Chris started riding with me when he was a little kid. He's grown now, but this would have been a much better presentation, but my riders learned to be very, very responsible. And I had asked one of my most responsible young ladies to sit in and help me out with this presentation today. But she thought it would present a very bad image for us to be on the screen without masks on, so she declined to do so. So my kids do grow up to think for themselves and to have some social concerns outside of themselves.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, and good luck.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
All right.
Thanks everybody for joining us today. We'll be back again next week at 2 p.m. for another edition of Horse Chats. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. And thanks again, Steve. And thanks, Charlene. And we will see you again real soon.
All right.